So good evening everyone. Good evening Moksh, good evening Arun. So let me upload file first. So today, good evening. Today we are going to discuss few of the technical MCQ. Okay, good evening Moksh. So please everyone join fast. I know today is although festival season, but study is also important. Okay. So should I start? So question number one, and an increase in the arterial resistance without change in the other component of cardiovascular system will produce a decrease in TPR, increase in capillary filtration, increase in the arterial pressure, or decrease in the afterload. What is the most appropriate answer? An increase in the arterial resistance. If you are increasing, arterioles are also called as resistance vessel. Arterioles are also called as resistance vessel. So if you are going to increase it, what is going to happen? Yes, Moksh, Arun, Supraja, Rohit Kumar, Sahil Patel, Akshay, Priyanka, Aruvi. You can answer in the comment section because there are few students, so we can discuss like that only. Increase in the arterial pressure. Okay. Mhm. So you can see answer is C. So what is the formula of that? What is formula of blood pressure? Or mean arterial pressure is equal to cardiac output into total peripheral resistance. Okay, and everyone knows that systolic BP depends on cardiac output, and diastolic blood pressure depends on total peripheral resistance. This is diastolic BP. Cardiac output is equal to stroke volume into heart rate. It is stroke volume into heart rate. Stroke volume itself depends on three factors. What are these three factors? What are these three factors? Number one, preload. It depends on preload. It depends on afterload. And third is it also depends on contractility. Contractility. So if you are going to increase the resistance, total peripheral resistance, okay, number one is that blood pressure is going to increase by this formula. Number second option, an increase in the capillary filtration, no. Increase in the arterial pressure, yes. TPR will increase and BP will also increase. It will not decrease, it will increase, isn't it? And decrease in the afterload, no. What is preload? What is afterload? Preload. What is preload? Anyone can tell me? What is the best indicator of preload? What is the best indicator of preload? Which volume? Best indicator of preload is end diastolic volume. Good. What is best indicator of afterload? Which is the best indicator of afterload? Preload best indicator is end diastolic volume. Afterload and systolic volume. No, no. What is the best indicator of afterload? It is not end systolic volume. And diastolic volume is of course for preload. The best indicator of afterload is anyone? Yes, Chinu, Naz, Moksh, Abhishek, Priyanka, Arvi, Supraja, Rohit, Arun. Everyone tell me. BJ, it is mean arterial pressure. Mean arterial pressure. And contractility means inotropic action. Best indicator of what is afterload, what is preload. Suppose this is a door, and if you are applying the pressure to open the door, if you are applying the pressure, this pressure is preload. But if someone is standing on the opposite side and preventing opening of the door, what is that? If someone is standing on the opposite side and preventing opening of the door, that is afterload, isn't it? So in the heart, if you see, if this is your fourth chamber of the heart, okay, amount of blood in the ventricle before contraction is end diastolic volume. So this is preload or afterload? This is what? Preload. And the average amount of pressure in the aorta, the amount of blood in the aorta, the average amount of blood in the aorta is, of course, it is afterload. Okay, so never forget, mean arterial pressure is afterload and end diastolic volume is preload. Is this clear? If you remember the basic PV diagram, do you remember this or not? Pressure volume loop curve. If you remember the pressure volume loop curve, this is change in the pressure, this is change in the volume. Okay, who can tell me what is A, what is B, what is C, and what is D? Who can tell me what is A? A is very good, Moksha, and systolic volume. Very good. What is B? And diastolic volume. And what is AB? From A to B, what is happening? Volume is increasing, but pressure is constant. So what is this phase called as? You can see volume is increasing from A. Very good. Ventricular filling. Very good. So now after ventricle is filled, okay, volume is constant, but pressure is increasing from 5 mmHg to 80 mmHg. What is that phase? What is BC called as? BC, isovolumetric contraction. Okay, so BC is isovolumetric contraction. Now from C to D, what is that called as? Volume is decreasing from C to D. Volume of ventricle is, yes, ventricular ejection. Ventricular ejection. And what is D to A? Very good, isovolumetric relaxation. Wonderful. Now tell me, where is S1, where is S2, where can be S3, and where can be S4? Where you can locate S1, S2, S3, and S4? B is S1. So always remember that S1 is always followed by isovolumetric contraction. Very good. What about S2? D is S2. S2 is always followed by isovolumetric relaxation. Where can be, if there would have been S3 and S4, what can be the location of S3 and S4? Where can be? Yes, this is ventricular filling, so that 70% of filling can be, yes, Nas, S3, very good, and this can be S4. Okay, now in which condition there can be right shift of the curve? There can be right shift of the curve. In which condition? What is rising? What is increasing in the right shift of the PV curve? Yes, increase in diastolic volume, or you can say increase in the what? Increase in preload. Increase in preload. What condition can cause left shift of the curve? What can be the condition when there is left shift of the curve? What will happen if there is less end systolic volume? If end systolic volume decreases, it means what is more? Ejection is more. Stroke volume is more. Yes or no? So in which condition ejection is more? In which condition ejection can be more? Welcome, Dr. DT. Stenosis. Why stenosis? In aortic stenosis, there can be upward shift, but in the left shift of the curve, what can be the condition? Anyone? Fibrillation. See, this is your end diastolic volume. This is your end systolic volume. Stroke volume is equal to end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. If end systolic volume is less, okay, stroke volume will be more. It means force of contraction will be more. It means what? Left shift is a condition when there is increased contractility, isn't it? And in which condition it can be upward shift? What can be the condition when, see, right shift is increase in the preload, left shift is the increase in the contractility, and upward shift. In which condition there can be upward shift? Yes, Moksh, Chinu, DT. If this is PV curve, it is increase in the afterload. Yes, aortic stenosis. Very good, DT. Well done. Aortic stenosis. So if I make this, if I draw this diagram again to simplify it, in aortic stenosis there can be upward shift. So this is your normal PV curve. If it is right shifting like that, suppose it is like that, it means end diastolic volume is more. So this can be because of increased preload. If there is left shift of the curve, it means your end systolic volume decreases. So stroke volume will be more. So it is can be due to increased contractility. And if there is upward shift, it means that aortic pressure is increased. So it can be because of increased afterload. And the best example is aortic stenosis. Good. Okay, coming to the next question. So the following measurements were obtained. Central venous pressure is 10 mm of Hg, heart rate is 70, systemic arterial oxygen is 0.24, venous is 0.16, whole body oxygen consumption is 500 ml. What is the patient cardiac output? So if you know the fixed cardiac formula, what is the fixed formula to measure cardiac output? What is the fixed formula to measure cardiac output? Oxygen consumption, oxygen consumption upon, tell me, arterial oxygen minus venous oxygen. So can you do calculation for me? Yes, can you calculate for me? Oxygen consumption is around how much? 500 ml per minute. Okay, and this is 0.24 minus 0.16. कितना हो गया? 0.24448, 0.08. So 8 5 ja 40, 8 6 ja 48. Okay, 6.25 liter per minute. Yes, answer is D. You are correct. Moksh, answer is D. So this is by simple formula of Fick's principle. So next question, which of the following is the result of an inward sodium current? Among all these all option, if you remember action potential of all, you can tell me which can be because of inward sodium current. Upstroke of action potential in SA node, upstroke of action potential in the Purkinje fiber, or plateau of action potential in the ventricular muscle, repolarization or what? Upstroke of action potential in, okay, let me tell you, this is about SA node, and this is your atrium and ventricular Purkinje. This is about SA node and AV node. Okay. Now tell me, this is pacemaker potential. Which which ion is coming inside during funny leaky channels, or it is also called as HCN channel. T calcium and what else? T calcium and slow sodium. Slow sodium. And depolarization is due to what? It is due to what? Which calcium? L calcium or T calcium? Transient calcium or L? L calcium. Repolarization is due to what? Of course, everywhere it is potassium. But in case of Purkinje fiber, atrium, ventricle, generalized muscle, this is because of sodium. This is because of potassium. This is your potassium. This is your calcium. This is again potassium. So depolarization is this one and this one, which is because of sodium, which is because of inward sodium. Because these are, of course, because of calcium and all. So what should be the best answer? A. Why A? SA node is because of L calcium, you can see here. Upstroke means depolarization and downstroke means repolarization. D. Why D? Repolarization is always because of potassium. Yes, B. Very good. B. Of course, Purkinje. Good. So never forget this. This is T calcium, slow sodium, L calcium, potassium. Because if you know these things, you can understand the basic of anti-arrhythmic drug. So please always remember this. Now, next question. This graph is amalgamation of two different graphs. This graph is amalgamation of two different graphs, and this graph is used clinically to understand cardiac reservoir and all those things of cardiac patient. Whenever there is some patient of heart, okay, this diagram is made this is made by some software. You have to put the data, and this will give you the idea what is the basic condition. Okay, who can tell me what is upward shift of this curve? What is upward shift of this curve? I will explain everything, but let me ask first. And what is downward shift of this curve? If a patient is coming to you with having this diagram and this is the dotted line in the patient, so which condition will be A and what condition will be B? I will talk purple line later on, but first let me talk about the cardiac output. In which condition graph can be A? Upward shift of this is simple Frank Sterling law. Okay, let me explain. This is very important, clinically very important. So please understand. This is your end diastolic volume or preload, and this is your force of contraction or afterload, and this is your contractility. Frank Sterling law. So it is very obvious now that you can understand if it goes up. What does this mean? Patient is taking which drug? Which drug is taken by the patient? Force of contraction is increased. Yes, positive inotropic, like digitalis, like digitalis. Or if patient is coming to your clinic with this diagram, with graph has shifted downward from the normal, what can be the condition? What can be the condition? Heart failure, isn't it? Contractility is less. So this diagram is amalgamation of two different diagram. I will tell you, this is first diagram. Never forget, this is force of contraction or contractility. Now coming to the second diagram, right atrial pressure and venous return. This is normal. This is normal. This is about right venous return and right atrial pressure. This is venous return. This is venous return and right atrial pressure. So what is this signifying? Who will tell me? In this diagram, it is contractility. Yes, Moksha, very good. It is mean systemic pressure. Wonderful. It is mean systemic pressure. Okay. And if it get upward like that or downward, upward means what? What is mean systemic pressure? The pressure by which fluid is going in the heart. The pressure by which fluid is going inside the heart, it is mean systemic pressure. Okay, so in this condition, mean systemic pressure can increase. What can be the condition? Any fluid transfusion. Any fluid transfusion. Fluid transfusion. It can be fluid, it can be plasma transfusion, or it can be blood. Or it can be blood. So if examiner give you this diagram or this graph, okay, upward shift, it is due to fluid transfusion or plasma or blood. If it is going down, what does this mean? What does this mean? Please tell me. Fluid loss, it can be fluid loss like diarrhea, cholera, plasma loss like burn, patient of burn, or blood loss like hemorrhage. So whenever you are getting this diagram, now see this diagram again, you are getting two. One is red one, other is purple one. This red one is indicating contractility. This is suggesting contractility, and this is suggesting mean systemic pressure. So please try to understand this. These two are different diagram. But nowadays, as image-based questions are very common, graph-based, so try to understand this question that whenever this graph is upward, it is increased contractility. For example, patient is on digitalis. And if this diagram is below like that, it is negative inotropic action, or simply it is a case of heart failure. Okay. In that case, if this is the diagram, what can be the condition? Tell me. What can be the condition if this is the diagram? What are various conditions in which there is upward shift of mean systemic pressure? Yes, blood transfusion, fluid transfusion, plasma transfusion. Any fluid transfusion will increase mean systemic pressure. And if this is the diagram like that, if diagram is like that, yes, yes, loss of fluid. For example, it can be diarrhea, it can be hemorrhage, it can be burn. It can be burn. So any doubt regarding this diagram to anyone? Because this is really a very important question. Okay. So by this you can understand the dash line in the figure illustrate the effect of what? What is the answer? The dash line is suggesting the effect of increased contractility. So now you understand that. Good. Now, okay, in which condition increased blood volume will be there? Very good. RV, DT, Praveen, LC, very good. So in which condition there can be increased blood volume? If you're getting a graph like that, okay, now tell me which is the condition? A, B, C, or D? What can be the condition when there is increased blood volume? Yes, C. Good. So in that condition, they can increase blood volume. Okay. What are other conditions? What can be the condition with this negative inotropic? Negative inotropic. Yes, B. Or you can say heart failure. So this diagram is very simple, although not given in most of the book. Yes, Chino, what is your question, sir? When conies increases, what is conies? Should it not be done to TPR? Yes, please write it again. I can understand. If you want to understand what is this, this is mean systemic pressure. Let me tell you what is mean systemic pressure. See, there are two pressure. This is your heart. The pressure by which heart is throwing blood in the circulation is called as mean arterial pressure, and the pressure by which it is going back to the circulation is mean systemic pressure. Are you getting me? The pressure by which heart is dumping blood in the systemic circulation is called as mean arterial pressure. It is diastole plus one third of pulse pressure, and the pressure by which it is going back. So whenever there is increased fluid, like blood transfusion, plasma transfusion, anything like that, it can make diagram like that. Okay, and if there is loss of fluid, it will cause decrease. X, no, ये तो हो गया question. It's very simple. It's also very simple. Let me. Which of the following is an inhibitory neurotransmitter in the CNS? Very basic, simple question. Yes, Chinu has asked me a question that dashed line why it cannot be increased TPR. Let me tell you. So your question is that this dash line you are telling me, Chinu. See, this is Frank Sterling law, not my law. Frank Sterling has given the law that if you increase end diastolic volume, okay, force of contraction will increase under physiological limit. So this y-axis is force of contraction, not TPR. So this line is indicating contractility always. Okay. Contract. If you see the basic formula I told you in the beginning of class, this is very important diagram. See, TPR is diastolic blood pressure. It depends on the arteriolar resistance, not on the ventricle. And cardiac output is the systemic BP. It depends on stroke volume and on the heart rate. Stroke volume depends on preload, afterload, and contractility. So this is Frank Sterling law. This is a different phenomenon. Okay. Yes, answer is GABA, isn't it? Which is the maximum, which neurotransmitter is found maximally? Which neurotransmitter is maximally? A lot of questions are asked. Very good, glutamate. Very good, DT. 75% are glutamate. Now, let me ask you one very important point. Do you know about NMDA receptor? Why magnesium salt are given in eclampsia or to prevent seizures? Why magnesium salts are given to prevent seizure? What is, I mean, basic of that? This is the drug of choice, magnesium salts. So what is the cause of that? No idea. Okay. So let me tell you that glutamate are of two type. It is metabotropic also and inotropic also. Inotropic can be of three type. It can be AMPA, it can be kainate, and the third and the most important for your pharmacology purpose, NMDA. These all are inotropic. This allows influx of sodium, This also allows influx of sodium, but this allows influx of calcium. But this NMDA receptor is blocked by which ion? Blocked by which ion? Magnesium ion. So how it actually work? Suppose this is your synapse, pre-synapse, post-synapse. This is your NMDA. This is your AMPA. Okay. Now when glutamate is released, it is going to activate NMDA or AMPA. When glutamate is released, it is going to activate AMPA or NMDA. This is magnesium blocking it. When glutamate is released, it is going to activate AMPA or NMDA. NMDA. Yes, both. Of course, both. But which will be activated first? This will be NMDA will be activated first or AMPA. See, this is blocked by magnesium. So first it will activate AMPA and sodium will come inside, and this sodium will generate action potential, or you can say EPSP, excitatory post synaptic potential, and this will cause removal of magnesium blockade. This will cause removal of, until you remove magnesium, you cannot activate NMDA. So AMPA will, the activation of AMPA will change voltage. It will generate EPSP, and this EPSP is responsible for removal of the magnesium blockade. Now glutamate will attach over here. Is this sufficient or something else is required? Is this much sufficient or something else is also required? One thing more is required. One more neurotransmitter is required. What is that? Yes, glycine. Glycine is also required. Only then calcium can come inside. And this calcium will activate nitric oxide, and this nitric oxide will cause synaptic enhancement. And this is the basic of long-term potentiation and your memory. This is how memory is formed. This is the exact mechanism of synaptic enhancement or memory formation. So magnesium is always blocking. So if you want to enumerate how NMDA is activated, what are the three prerequisites? What are the three prerequisites to activate NMDA? Number one is activation of AMPA to generate EPSP so that magnesium can be removed. Number two, attachment of glutamate. And number three, attachment of glycine. Only then calcium can come and activate nitric oxide, and it will go retrograde synaptic enhancement. This is the basic of your memory or long-term potentiation. That is why magnesium salt is given. And if you know, there are so many drugs that are glutamate, I mean NMDA blocker. Do you remember any drug which is NMDA blocker? Phencyclidine, ketamine, all these are NMDA blocker, and these can cause dissociative anesthesia. That is why this is the main excitatory neurotransmitter, and if you block by phencyclidine and all those drugs, it can cause dissociative anesthesia. Then there is one more thing called as glutamate toxicity, and in that we also use NMDA blocker, and those are neuroprotective drug like riluzole. Like riluzole. What is riluzole? It is given in which disease? Or memantine. Memantine. Memantine is given in Alzheimer disease, and this is given in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Because glutamate toxicity, if there is large amount of glutamate, it will cause influx of large amount of calcium, and it can generate apoptosis. So apoptosis will be generated. So in that case, particularly if there is more glutamate, it can kill the cell. In that case, NMDA receptor antagonists are given like riluzole, memantine, like amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and Alzheimer disease to prevent glutamate toxicity. Okay, so please remember about glutamate. There are a lot of questions coming. I've taken 2 hour lecture on this drug. If you are subscribed to an academy, you can go and see that. I've taken a detailed lecture on that, all the drugs which are given. Then about GABA. If you remember about GABA, how many types of GABA are there? Just a brief revision. There are 3 types of GABA, which is inotropic and which is metabotropic. A and C are inotropic, B is metabotropic. Okay, A and B are found in CNS, and C is found exclusively in retina. After that, which drug is GABA A agonist? Which drug is GABA A agonist? Like benzodiazepine, barbiturate. Yes, alcohol also behave like that. Which is GABA B agonist given in I mean those muscle spastic condition. Yes, baclofen, GABA B agonist. Anyway, ATP is used indirectly for which of the following processes? This is a wonderful question, very beautiful question. ATP is used indirectly. D means H plus. Okay, E means absorption of glucose by intestinal epithelial cell. Okay, what about others? No problem. You can answer in the comment section. See, either you can be right or you can be wrong. If you're wrong, you will learn. No problem in that. Yes, Moksha, you are absolutely correct. Chinu, correct. Muskan, correct. Yes, see, this is SGLT. SGLT. SGLT is the example of secondary active transporter. It utilizes ATP indirectly. Rest all are primary active transporter. This is SARCA. Sarcoplasmic endoplasmic calcium ATPase. This is again sodium pump. This is again potassium pump. So these all are primary active transporter. These used ATP directly, and this is secondary active transporter. So they are using it indirectly. Okay. Which of the following causes rigor in skeletal muscle? Rigor mortis, very commonly asked question. What is B? Increase in intracellular calcium. Yes, very good. So many of you are LCA Tejas right, Muskan right, DT right. Okay, so you know that it is decrease in the ATP level. Rigor mortis, it comes in 12 hour, it remain for 12 hour, it goes in 12 hour. 12 घंटे में आती है, 12 घंटे रहती है और 12 घंटे बाद चली जाती है. कौन? Rigor mortis. Okay, so why it comes? Why it comes? This is your yes. Why it comes? The answer is of course E. No problem in that. But why it comes? Because if there is no ATP, calcium will start leaking. Calcium will start leaking. Yes. And if you remember the head of myosin, this is actin filament. This is actin filament, and these are your myosin. When ATP comes, it is dissociated. When ATP does not come, it is not dissociated and it causes rigidity. And why it is dissolved? because after some time lysosome will burst, hydrolytic enzymes will release and they will break down actin and myosin filament. Okay. This is a simple question. Degeneration of dopaminergic neurons has been implicated in. Yes, very good. B, everyone correct. B, very good. And what happened in schizophrenia? What happened in schizophrenia? Yes, increase in dopamine. Increase, very good. Increase, just opposite of that. Okay, can you tell me all the feature of this Parkinson disease? There is trap, tremor, rigidity, akinesia. There is tremor. Which type of tremors are found? Resting tremor or intentional tremor? Resting tremor. Rigidity. Which rigidity is found? One is called as cog wheel rigidity, and other is called as lead pipe. Okay, A for akinesia or bradykinesia. P for pin rolling movement. And then there are mask, face, serpentine look. Okay, so all these are very, very characteristic property of Parkinsonism. Which drug is given? Levodopa with carbidopa. Everyone knows about that. Nothing to mention in that. Okay, now this is simple physics. So also we discussed already. Okay, now this is important. Blood level of which of the following substances decrease in Grave disease? Blood level of which disease, which substance is decreased in the Grave disease? T3, T4, DIT, TSH or iodide? Grave disease is a autoimmune disorder. Okay, which antibody is found in Grave disease? Which antibody is found in Grave disease? Which antibody is characteristic? Of course, TSH will be, it is hyperthyroidism, TSH will be less. Which antibody is very characteristic? Yes, it is called as TSH receptor antibody or TSI. What is TSI? Both are same thing with different name. What is TSI? TSH stimulatory immunoglobulin. And in which disease you mainly get anti-TPO antibody? This is found in which disease mainly? Although this is non-specific, they are found in so many diseases, but they are well known to be associated with which types of, yes, very good, Hashimoto. Hashimoto. And TRAB or TSI are associated with Grave disease. Good. Which of the following hormone act by IP3 and DAG mechanism? Which of the following hormone act by, you can say simply GQ? Which one is GQ? This is vitamin D3. Yes, very good. Mox B. Why B? B, progesterone is a steroid. This will be nuclear receptor. This is also a nuclear. This is receptor tyrosine kinase. This is GS. So answer is GnRH. All releasing hormone are mostly GQ, isn't it? Okay. So parathormone is GS. That is why cyclic MP test is also done. Do you know how to differentiate between parathormone, hypoparathyroidism? There are three types of parathyroidism. One is primary hypoparathyroidism. This is very important point. Second is pseudo hypoparathyroidism, and third is pseudo. Primary hypoparathyroidism, pseudo hypoparathyroidism, and pseudo. What is the basic characteristic of primary hypoparathyroidism? In primary hypoparathyroidism, parathormone will be less or not? Yes, no parathormone, or you can say very, very less. Okay. What about calcium and phosphate? If you want to ignore phosphate, I can ignore. What about calcium? Calcium will also be less. Yes, decrease. In pseudo, what happened in pseudo hypoparathyroidism? Receptor is resistant to every organ. Receptor is resistant to, yes, very good. This is the single most important point. Receptor is resistant to every organ. This is important point. So parathormone will be less or more, or what? What do you think? Parathormone will be more, less, or normal? It is increased. Very good. Very good. But calcium will be. But what about calcium? What about calcium? Although parathormone is more, but they are not working on serpentine receptor. So calcium will be normal or low. It is not acting properly. Low, yes. Okay. So let me focus on this. Then I will come to pseudo. Now, how to distinguish that? How to differentiate between that? If you give injection of parathormone, this is called as parathormone challenge test. It is called as parathormone challenge test. What will happen to primary hypoparathyroidism and what will happen to pseudo hypoparathyroidism? Cyclic AMP in the urine will be normal or increase. This is your MCQ. This is called as parathormone challenge cyclic AMP test. In primary, it will improve. Yes, very good. Why? Yes, DT. What is the reason for that? Because they are working on serpentine receptor. Parathormone was low. If you give parathormone, they will generate cyclic AMP. Yes, difference is important. In case of pseudo hypoparathyroidism, even after giving parathormone injection, cyclic AMP will improve or not? No. So this is how you will distinguish between that and that. But now if someone asks you how to distinguish between pseudo and pseudo, both are manifestation of same disease. What is that disease called as? Both are manifestation of the same disease. And that disease is found in children called as Albright osteodystrophy syndrome, isn't it? But when it comes from mother, okay, child will become pseudo hypoparathyroidism, and when it comes from father, it becomes pseudo. What is this process called as in pathology? Pathology में इसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Imprinting or genomic silencing. Do you remember that? Imprint or genomic silencing. Okay. But in that pseudo, I told you already that receptor is resistance. Every receptor is resistant. Every. But in pseudo, which receptor is resistant? Which receptor is not working properly? In pseudo, there are so many receptors in the parathormone, in the kidney, in the everywhere, in the bone. So which receptor is not working properly of parathormone? Anyone? Any idea to anyone? In this, every receptor is not working properly. In this, only bone receptor is not working properly. Okay. So lab parameter will be normal. Lab parameter will be normal. But bone, so phenotypically patient will be abnormal. So the difference between pseudo and pseudo is that in this lab parameter is also disturbed. In pseudo lab parathormone normal, calcium normal, but bone abnormality. And the most characteristic point is what? One of the most characteristic sign is what? Knuckle. What is that called as? Knuckle, knuckle, dimple. If you see the patient knuckle, there are one knuckle, two knuckle, three knuckle, four knuckle. But you will get knuckle, dimple. In which disease? Pseudo or pseudo, both. You will get knuckle, dimple in pseudo hypoparathyroidism or pseudo, both. This knuckle, dimple. This sign you will get because of short third and fourth metacarpal. Yes, both, because in that bone is also not working properly. So this knuckle, dimple sign you will be found in both. But lab parameter is normal in pseudo. Lab parameter is absolutely normal. Do you remember knuckle, dimple? Anyone? Knuckle, dimple is that. Do you remember knuckle, dimple? In pathology, you are reading all those things. What is found in Turner syndrome? This is short third and fourth metacarpal. Short third and fourth metacarpal. Okay. So this is about a brief about this parathyroid hormone. Okay. Now this is also a factual point. The source of estrogen during second and third trimester of pregnancy is the source of estrogen during second and third trimester of pregnancy is only one answer correct, two answer correct. Okay. DT is correct and Moksha is correct. Priyanshu is also correct. Very good. So we used to remember mainly placenta, but remember from placenta it is coming from where? It is coming from fetal adrenal gland, fetal liver, and it crossed the placenta. Okay. So even in the second and third trimester, the fetus, see, mother is giving a lot of things to the fetus, but fetus is also giving, especially estrogen. Okay, so answer is fetal, not placenta. Many of you are saying placenta because we are reading like that only, it transfers from placenta, but from where? From fetal adrenal gland and fetal liver. Okay, during the second and third trimester of pregnancy, fetal adrenal gland synthesize DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, which is hydroxylated in the fetal liver itself and then transferred to placenta where it is atomized to estrogen. Okay. In the first trimester, corpus luteum is the source of both estrogen as well as progesterone. Don't think that corpus luteum is only for progesterone, it is also for estrogen. Which of the following cause increased aldosterone secretion? What is the most potent stimulator of aldosterone? What is the most potent stimulator of aldosterone? Yes, RAS, of course. So RAS means what? Yes, very good. Hypovolemia, wonderful. So you know that this is your collecting duct. This is your principal cell. Yes. And this is the nucleus. And always there is implantation of ENaC, epithelial sodium channel. And what is that? Sodium potassium pump. Okay. So normally ENaC is degraded by what? Normally, ENaC is degraded by, time is only 5 minutes left. Let me summarize it fast. It is degraded by NED. Do you know NED? NED used to degrade ENaC. But when aldosterone come, what is the role of aldosterone? Aldosterone when comes, it goes inside the nucleus and it causes degradation of NED itself, so that ENaC can be preserved. ENaC can be preserved and sodium can be reabsorbed. Now, tell me, if there is more aldosterone, it is called as primary hyperaldosteronemia, or it is called as Cone syndrome. And what is second? Second is called as pseudo hyperaldosterone. What is that called as? What is other name of pseudo hyperaldosteronism? It is called as Liddle syndrome. What is difference between that two, and how to differentiate between two patients? That either patient is having Cone syndrome or patient is having Liddle syndrome. In that there is primary increase in the aldosterone level, and here it is gain of mutation of ENaC, epithelial sodium channel. But how do we differentiate? Because both patient will have hypertension. Both patients are going to have hypertension. So how to differentiate? One single point. What is that? One single point, and what is that? Both are having hypertension. Both will have hypokalemia, of course. Either there is gain of mutation of ENaC. What else? What about aldosterone? Aldosterone will be high here or low in Cone syndrome. In Cone syndrome, aldosterone will be high or low. Yes, increase. And in pseudo hyperaldosteronism, there is mutation of ENaC, not of primary. It will be low. So this is the differentiating feature between Cone, because patient will come to your clinic and both will be having hypertension. Both will look similar, but this is primary hyperaldosteronism and this is pseudo. That is why it is called as pseudo, because there is no hyperaldosteronism. There is less aldosterone. Okay, this is the primary feature. There are a lot more because time is less. Now, those who are subscribed to an academy, tomorrow I am going to revise whole physiology in just 4 hours for NEET PG and FMG examination, and class will be, it start from 10 to 12, and then 12:30 to 2:30, like that. This is for plus who are subscribed. Most I think you are there. MCQ I will take separately because I have only 4 hours. Tomorrow I am having only 4 hours, and I have to cover all high yielding topic, all the graph, curve, important topic. So I have only 4 hours to revise everything. And tomorrow I will try to take more and more of the clinical integrated topic, those topics which are integrated to every other subject. Okay. So those who are subscribed to an academy can join me. And those who want to subscribe, okay, if you put code physio10, you will get 10% discount on that. Physio10. There are so many code given to various educator. You can put any code and you will get absolutely discount in that. So thanks for joining me even in this festival time. Okay. So thanks and good night, everyone. Thank you and good night. Thanks, Priyanshu. Thanks, DT. Thanks a lot for coming. Moksh, Yashwant, everyone, thanks. Okay, thanks. Bye bye. Good night.